The Promissory Note from I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King, Jr. The 14th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act of 1866. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to the end of a long night of captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men would be guaranteed inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring the sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of American opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. This, the marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community, must not lead us to distrust all white people, for many of our white brothers are, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny, and their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together at a table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. When we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village, every hamlet, from every city, and every state, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. We are here at the Martin Luther King Memorial here in Washington, D.C. We've come here today as Mr. Citizen Patriot to claim the authority and the power to fulfill the dream that Dr. King had for our nation. People look at my outfit, look at who I am and say, Uncle Sam, no, Uncle Sam is nothing but a poster that taxes you with an old white man on it. I am the living symbol, the new living symbol of America. It took 243 years of America's tribulations to come to this point where the nation is now ripe and ready for a black man like me to come along and bring the country together from the political right, left, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, whatever you may be. We must now learn to come together as we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. It is time that we rise up and live out the creed of our nation. Black people, when you see this black skin right here, I want you to know something. Without this black skin and our experience as chattel slaves in this country, there'd be no red, white, and blue. It's really up to you, my brothers and my sisters, to claim that which is ours. And the 14th Amendment, the promissory note, that's what Dr. King is talking about. It's in the Constitution. We are not just a regular people. We are a protected people. And the only way that what's in the Constitution and the only way what this man dreamed will become a reality is when you and I embrace that which we have been apprehended for. Come on, brothers and sisters, let's finish the dream.
Hey, hey, y'all. Shalom. Welcome to another exciting episode of Your Power Weapon on Urban Smart Network. I'm Ted, aka Mr. Patriot. Boy, that cat was laying it down, wasn't he? And the fact of the matter is, people, the brother is right. Had we acquiesced that which we have been apprehended for, this 14th Amendment, Civil Rights Act of 1866, a lot of this that we are complaining about right now would not be going on, because we will be home in our hearts and in our minds. Welcome to another episode of Your Power Weapon. Today is the official national holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, which was on the 15th, this last Saturday. And everybody, if you've been watching the news on the political right and the political left, they are throwing Martin Luther King like a football, or let me say a soccer ball. They're kicking him around back and forth. And from what I'm understanding, because they are not on the foundation as to who we are as a people, neither one of them got it right. And the most shameful thing about this, when I watched the black pundits on CNN and MSNBC and then on Fox too, it's a shame that they don't even bring up the very fundamental issue of our people being in this country. We don't know who we are, and so we cry the blues. But you know what? We got some good people on once again tonight. We got Ken Hardeen. We got the Unicorn from Southside Chicago. We got Ms. Ashley is here, and maybe some other folks to join us as time goes on. But in the meantime, like us on Facebook, put us on all your social media. Tell everybody what's going on over here with Your Power Weapon on urbansmartnetwork.com. Let me, before we get into some of these topics that we're going to discuss today around Martin Luther King's birthday and how everybody using him for their own political gains, we're going to deal with some matters of the title of our broadcast is Black Citizens and the grand larcenous theft of our identity and our civil rights legacy. You got this cat, this mayor in New York, Brooks or whatever his name is. I forget his name right now, but that guy in New York, the black fella, he's talking about allowing illegal aliens to vote. Do you know what we went through as a black people to have the right to vote? Or let me say this: American Africans having a right to vote. People died for that, and this man want to give it away. And we got people just using Martin Luther King's speech to justify their own means. So I want to, before we get into the conversation, I want to have Keith come on for a second and then just say a couple words, and then we're going to go back to Keith, and because he got some very interesting points to make to us today. And Keith, what's going on, brother? Talk to us for a second here, and then we'll go over to the Unicorn. You're not. We're not hearing you, brother. I'll try to read his lips.
There.
Oh, there he is.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying we on this special day, Martin Luther King Day, You know, it's interesting that everybody was talking about voter rights acts, voter rights bills. So the Voter Rights Bill of 1964. So I'm just going to basically say that they better watch out and read it closely, the Civil Rights Bill that is presently in the Congress, in the Senate, because that bill is very dangerous for blacks as well as everybody else. It was an American citizen. Every state would be required to provide at least 15 days of early voting. Now, early voting opens the door for fraud. The bill would also require every state to allow voting by mail and mandates online and same-day voter registration. That is also opening the door for fraud. You don't need same-day voter registration. If you can't register to vote beforehand and you know you should, then you miss out. The voting is a responsibility for all of us, especially those who had to fight so hard to get it. The bill would also restore voting rights to felons who have already served their sentences. The bill would also effectively loosen state voter identification. And so that means that, oh, you don't have to show ID to vote. Well, you do have to show ID to enter a restaurant or enter a movie theater.
Show me your papers.
Show ID, and you have to show vaccination proof. But you don't have to show an ID to vote. And it's too hard for blacks to get that ID, right? And then by providing, also last thing, if a state requires ID, a voter lacking the proper ID could instead sign a statement attesting to his or her identity. I don't trust that. So all I'm saying here is that you better look at this carefully. We're being duped again, and they claim that Republicans don't want blacks to vote. I mean, my gosh, I'm so sick of hearing that. But anyway, that's my little basic analysis of the voter rights, so-called voter rights bill that they are fighting.
We're gonna come back to you, Keith, so you can get more into details, and we're gonna go back and forth on that. But I want everybody out there to know something, though. Look, I'm not a Republican. I used to be in the Republican Party. I used to be in the Democratic Party. I'm an independent now, basically, and I'm an American. And this whole thing of just do some historical research, and you'll find out that in 1870, after the passage of the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which turned to the 14th Amendment, which gave us chattel slave, free chattel slaves and freemen our super citizenship status, right? Well, in 1870s, 1871 to 1875, Congress had to, with the leadership of President Grant, had to concoct or create special civil rights acts that gave the federal marshals authority to go after the Ku Klux Klan for denying, disenfranchising the new American citizens, i.e. the chattel slaves and freemen, our right to vote. He had to go after them. And guess what? We come to find out the Ku Klux Klan was created by the Democratic Party. And if you follow your history, from 1865 all the way up into 1964, Democrats have always disenfranchised black folks of our right to vote, violating the 15th Amendment. This is the party. What they're doing to these feckless Republicans is they are gaslighting Republicans, and they're deceiving the American people, making the American people think that the Republicans are the Democrats, KKK racist. Hey, Unicorn, what's up, my brother? hey, Unicorn, before you come up for a minute, I want to talk with you. There's a cat in Chicago, and I wonder if you know him, in South Side. He's up on the roof, man, in that Chicago Hawk, making a statement that he needs a community center for young black men to go so that murder will stop in Chicago, or at least in that particular neighborhood. Unicorn, you from South Side Chicago. Talk to us, my brother.
Well, I don't know. And hey, everybody, thank you for having me on, Ted. I don't know this gentleman in particular, but if he can see this show, and I'm sure he will, God bless you. I'm proud of you. I'm glad that somebody in Chicago is starting to stand up. There's quite a few people who are. No, I don't know him yet, but I'm going to try to find out. Send me a link so I can try to catch up with that brother. Listening
his name is Pastor Brooks, I think it is. Corey Brooks is his name. Hey, look, man, hats off to him because you know that hawk thing in Chicago up on that roof.
No joke.
Brother, that cat is committed.
He could be on the ground and it would still be a problem. But he up there getting full blast. He getting the full hit. So yeah, my hats off to him for that. That means this is very important to him. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna mess with that hawk. But I wanted to say, you know, being in the presence of Keith Hardeen and yourself, I've been edified, and that's why I insist that you young people pass this show on. You get this out there because this is what would have been done if we were in the crawl back in Africa. This is what it was done back in the Deep South. Those of us with gray, granted, Ted's gray is a little larger than mine.
Baby, OG, we made it.
We made it. Yay. You know, you young people would have been sitting around the fireplace listening to us anyway.
Yeah.
But we're being drowned out. So you got to get this show to other young people so they can understand. And what I was saying about that is, with the presence of Keith Hardeen, yourself, Miss Ashley, I'm honored to be in your presence because I'm learning. I'm getting some stuff. And this is what I want to say. His name is Mayor Eric Adams. Now, I was going for Sliwa. Sliwa, who was the founder of the Guardian Angels in New York, he would have been a better mayor for the New York City. But I warned everybody, even last year, I said, don't you be surprised when all you've done is voted for the male version of Mayor Lightfoot out of Chicago. So now you got two black mayors putting the jam on us. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, you, Ted, you educated me about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Right. That belongs to me.
Yes, sir.
It belongs to us.
Yes, sir.
And now there's this Negro man in New York. Well, you got it. You know what, you did it on my show, so I'm gonna use it on your show.
Security.
Yeah. What was that word you used? Negress or something like that. What's it?
Negro.
Now Negro is out here in New York, and and I cannot believe it's so prophetic in timing. He did it on the eve of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s memorial. Man. Yeah. He just made and Keith Hardeen, help me if I'm wrong, because you know me, I might get a little excited. Did he or did he not just make moot the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment? That man just wiped them out. Why are you going to give a group of people the right to vote and they're going to vote for their own self-interest, right? And you're fighting against the inner city poor African Americans, the poor blacks. You're in competition for the same resources. And this brother just went, y'all can go and get it. Now, I did an article, and thank God it's on a Political Vanguard. I actually got published today with an article about that matter because I believe that Mayor Eric Adams just spit in the face of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Keith, what do you say?
You're right. You're right. That's it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Unicorn. You know, you are a very amazing person yourself. All of you are, and I appreciate you coming on to your power weapon, so that we can begin to build a strong body politic to seize the national narrative. Now, and all you young folks who are tapping into this, we OGs, man. We've been there. We know what it's about, and we're standing up now and being more aggressive and showing y'all how to get out this mess. Now, Miss Ashley. Ms. Ashley is our next guest here. She is a community activist in the area of school choice and other matters too. But school choice, she's apparently is a consultant in that area. You know, they've always say, Miss Ashley, when white folks catch a cold, we get pneumonia. When white folks get pneumonia, we die. And so it seems like whenever something happens bad to white folks, like white folks are fighting like out in Loudoun for their children to go to schools that they want them to go to, it's hard for them. So Ms. Ashley, talk to us. How difficult is that for us black folks?
Well, we can just look at the rates of the graduation rates here just in California, where we have, and I work a lot with black males, where 48% of our black males are not even graduating high schools. And
what is it, 48%?
48% of our black males are not even graduating high school. And the ones that do, they're at a third or fourth grade reading, writing, arithmetic level. So you can't take advantage of any of the opportunities when you have those types of statistics. Now, voting itself is a privilege. We understood when we came here 400 plus years ago, and Black people understood this, that education was going to be the key to our success. Not only did we survive, but we thrived. We became mathematicians. We became scientists. We were the inventors in this country. It's so weird nowadays listening to these people talking about, especially the Democratic Party, because everybody on this line knows about the history, talking about Jim Crow 2.0. But they never want to talk about Jim Crow 1.0. So let me educate people just a little bit, because I actually grew up in the 1960s in the segregated South under Jim Crow. Okay, so you talk to a lady that actually lived it in my family before them, which lived in the lynching capital of the United States in Florida. So what it is, so just briefly for Jim Crow 1.0, which also was the Democratic laws, what that said, first of all, Black people, you're talking about going a few miles to vote, or, around the corner in the car. Black people, some had to walk maybe 10 miles to go their voting places just to vote. Okay. When they got there, they were required to recite the most difficult parts of the Constitution, or, the Constitution as a whole. If you're able to get that right, then they take out this jar of jelly beans and say, Negro, I'm going to say ninja right now, I need you to tell me how many jelly beans are in that jar. And if they happen to guess that right, then they take out a bar of soap and then wet that. And that bar of soap, then they say, tell me how many bubbles on that bar of soap. Okay. Mm-hmm. So most people, like I said before, and then your parent would have had to vote like years before you, whatever, and that wasn't happening. Then when you got home, you walked the 10 miles home, you were subjected to either beatings or maybe even lynching because you tried to vote or you stepped out of your place. Now, that was Jim Crow 1.0. So what I like to ask the Democrats when they talk about Jim Crow 2.0, what part of this new provision or voting law in Georgia relates to that? Because I don't see anything in their voting law that resembles that. So there's no Jim Crow 2.0. There's only Jim Crow 1.0, and that's the Democratic Party. So we have to get that message out there showing who and what they are. But in the process, we are losing 1,000 of our kids every year. The gentleman, Reverend Brooks, I think that's on the roof. Yes. We lost in Chicago 797 children, Black kids, especially boys, killed each other last year. That's almost 800. Okay. We're losing whole generations of Blacks being just wiped out. That is our legacy. That is our history. Now, that's just Chicago. Overall, every year, there's about 8,000 Black kids killing each other and just being wiped out. We're pretty much on the verge of extermination. But I'm like this, if Black people don't stand up and care, why should anybody care about us? We just kind of, another ninja dead and move on. 1 year olds, 30 days old, 1 year old, 18-year-old just being wiped out, where a whole generation has just been, dismantled. So we got to take some authority. Now we're starting with the school choice. You got to start somewhere. And what this program we're doing in California, we're trying to put this on the ballot, and it's californiaschoolchoice.org. And what that would do is that California spends about $20,000 every year for each child to be educated. Of course, I don't know where the money's going, because we're definitely not being educated with that. But what it would take with that Prop 98 money that comes from the federal government, which is about $14,000 a year, it would take those funds and set up an educational savings account for each child. That child would then be able to use that funds and go to any school of their choice of those funds. Most schools, private schools, parochial schools in California, they run $6,000 to $8,000. Just take that rate of we say 8,000. Okay, that's going to leave you $6,000 a year left over from kindergarten to 12th grade. Any funds left over you don't use for your education is put in a savings account for you. At the end of that 12 or 13 year, you could literally have $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in your account to go to any college or trade school of your choice that's accredited. And you can use that money up to 30 years old. So even if you left school at 18, decide I want to go to the military or something else for a while, you could come back and use that money for your education, to further your education, or can use it to go to trade school up to 30 years old. So that's kind of what we're fighting on. It's going to be on the ballot. Go on californiaschoolchoice.org and see if we got to start there. Our main focus besides that is to try to rebuild our families. We've had a complete breakdown of the family unit. When I was growing up, 90% of the families were God-centered, pretty much moms and dads, traditional families. We had about 25% of the families not single moms. When you have a complete breakdown of your family unit and our relationship with God diminished, that's what you see right now in front of you, the extermination of a race of people.
You know, Ms. Ashley, everything you said about your school choice, you know what the problem that you have with that, y'all having with that? It makes too much sense.
Too much well, we hope we need to collect 1 million signatures. It's making a lot of sense to a lot of people, and people, Democrats, Independent, Republicans, everybody, sign it on. Once we get the 1 million signatures, we can put it on the ballot. Will be a constitutional amendment. And people always tell me, well, the school unions are so powerful. Yes, they are, and they have millions of dollars, and they have 300,000 members. They say here in California, but if I got 20 million parents that say this is what we're going to do, guess who's going to win that battle?
That's true. That's
exactly.
True. That's true. You know, folks, the scriptures, if you believe the scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, that says that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And where there is no vision, the people perish. And that word perish in the Hebrew means a slow, languishing, dying. And that's kind of what's happening to us, American, African, U.S. Black citizens. And we tend to, I know I have over the years, tend to berate our people for their stupidity. For, in fact, as you saw, this man called him nickname Master Joe when he said before the election, if y'all niggers don't vote for me, y'all not black. And sure enough, we went right out there and we did that. And then when you see the fact that Mr. Master Joe wouldn't be here today, which caused quite a bit of world upheaval, if it wasn't for those American Africans, descendants of Chattel slaves in South Carolina, which 40% of the slave trade came into America through South Carolina, and Congressman James Clyburn. Y'all look him up, young people. This man led black folks to vote for a man who dared, a white guy now, all this talk about white racism, they allowed a white man to tell us our identity is based on our acquiescence and submission to his will. And he continues to do that. And he continues to talk about Martin Luther King. And yet we go for it. And I'm going to tell y'all why we go for it. And that's because we don't know who we are as a people. And, we can talk about our skin color and all that black unity all we want, but it ain't got nothing really to do with skin color. Like it's just like a police officer wear a blue uniform. It has nothing to do with who he is as a person. And we don't know who we are in the United States Constitution. Young people, all of us, whether you like America or not, disagree with America or not, whether you believe in the Constitution or not, is right now irrelevant. You have an obligation, even if you got a 4th grade reading level, to look into this Constitution, particularly the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment, which identifies not only who you are, what you are, but it also lets you know the authority as a collective body of people have even over the president of the United States. This is our problem. This is why everybody is using our legacy. The illegal aliens are using it. The LGBT community are using it. Animal rights people are using it. Hey, what's that other group? That kid today over there in New Jersey. Come on, help me, y'all. What was his name? The transgender guy wants to be a champion swimmer. Leah is the name he chose. This guy claims that his struggle to be a transgender swimming championship against women is like, he compared it to the Jackie Robinson legacy. And you know what? Nobody of any real repute in this country stood up and said, wait a minute, that is racist. That's really bad. Talk to us, Ken. What do you think of that, man? Unicorn? Talk to us, Ken. What is your sense of why black folks, the leadership, ain't open their mouth about this rape and theft of our legacies?
Well, first of all, let me just say this real quick, and I'm gonna answer that question. I am so glad to see that I'm on this. You know how they say sometimes you better make sure you're on God's side. We say, God's on my side. but we need to make sure that we're on God's side. Now, I'm not equating Miss Ashley to God, don't get me wrong, but I am glad to see that when it comes to this California schoolchoice.org program, she and I are lockstep and marching in the same direction. Never have I seen a program so important to the Black community than this. And with Miss Ashley leading the charge, we're going to be all right in that regard. Now, to answer that question, hey, put it this way. They say America loves a winner. That's the way we get down. We love a winner. You know, when it comes to the Super Bowl, don't let the Cowboys win, which I don't think is going to happen. But, you know, whatever team, whatever, that ain't happening today. But, you know, whatever team wins the Super Bowl, that particular jersey goes up in sales. It just goes up. That's the jersey that sells the most. Yeah. Well, when you consider that there was a time that when you was an illegal alien, you was sure enough, really no joke, an illegal alien. They used to put you back on the same plane that night. I knew some cops, you know what I mean? You'd be on your way back to wherever you came from within 24 hours sometimes, okay? Yeah. So I said all of that to say this. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment is a golden ticket. Remember Willy Wonka? I got a golden ticket, right? We got
I didn't see the movie. I'm sorry.
Oh, you didn't see Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? No. Oh, man. Okay, well, there's a thing called a golden ticket. Well, that's what the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment really is. It's a golden ticket because there were decent white human beings, whether it was Wilbur Wilberforce, whether it was John Brown, you know, all these abolitionists, whatever, John Brown. There were some decent white human beings who were convicted deep in their souls and said, we did these people super dirt. Yeah. There's no way we're going to really atone for this. That was our reparations. And so they gave us a golden ticket.
Yes.
The whole world saw that.
Yes.
And they said, I want one of those. So I tell you what I'm going to do. Just like when, and I'm just speaking this because I got the goose pimples to say it. I'm going to get some of the words wrong, but y'all, I got scholars around me, so you're going to help me out. There was a young man who was going to steal his brother's birthright. And the mama went and got some rough wool and whatnot and put it on his arm. And she cooked that meal. And she said, now bless this child. And it was the wrong child. It wasn't the one that was supposed to get the blessing. This is our blessing. And the LGBTQ community, the illegal aliens, and anybody else that can get some of it wants that wave over them. They want that wave over them because if we had used the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment right,
as intended,
we would have owned this country 25 years ago.
Yeah, that is so true, people. This is why I really push this matter of the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment, because that is fundamental. You may be an activist for Black issues, you may be an activist for the environment, you may be an activist for whatever, like I said, even Black folks, but that does not make you a civil rights activist. I think we've belittled that word, we've cheapened it. If you are a civil rights activist, then you should know the very first law of the civil rights effort, and that is the 1866 Civil Rights Act. In fact, folks, this law is so powerful to Black citizens. Go read this now. In fact, when the president Johnson, who took over for the assassinated Lincoln, by the way, was assassinated by Democrats. When Democrats killed him. When he read this bill, he said, "I'm going to veto the bill." And they asked him why. You know, we've done so bad to Black folks. Here's a chance for us, these African people, these former slaves. Let's give them some power so that they can catch up with the rest of us white citizens and enjoy America like we enjoy. And the man said, "No, I can't do that." And he said, "Why?" He said because it gives too much power to the freed slaves, Chattel slaves, over the white citizens. Of course, he ended up getting impeached behind that sentiment. See, folks, people, as Unicorn was saying, there's some pretty wonderful white folks in America. As Dr. King said, you heard Mr. Patriot give that portion of the speech. White folks who died for us, who was lynched for us. They lynched a lot of Black folks, of white folks at the end of the Civil War, who Republicans, by the way, who came down south to teach Black folks how to read so that we could look into the Constitution and see the power that we had. They hated them white cats more than they hated us, you see. And they gave us a power, but we never had the opportunity to exercise it. Dr. King gave a speech, y'all, in 1963, the very, very famous I Have a Dream speech. Did you know he talked about this in the speech? It's called the promissory note. That's what this is. I have a friend, he's passed on to heaven. He lived with Dr. King, marched with Dr. King, knew Dr. King. He was there on the platform at the Lincoln Memorial when Dr. King gave that I Have a Dream speech, when he talked about the promissory note taken to the Bank of Justice. And I asked him, I said, sir, was the promissory note, were y'all talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment? He says, yes, young man, that's exactly what we was talking about, but we didn't know how to go forward on it. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know something. For some crazy, mysterious reason, white people, black people, political right and left, Americans have taken one statement out of that man's speech, and they have used this speech to bring a lot of unnecessary confusion to the issue. And the speech is this: I have a dream that one day in this nation, my little 4 children shall be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And everybody is jumping on that as though that is the only thing he said in that speech. But if you go up to the top of that speech, you'll see that Dr. King was saying that until you do the first part of the speech, the second part, this dream about America, it ain't gonna happen, no matter how many times y'all say, I don't see color. Because to say you don't see color, you are saying God did not make me. God did not make a mistake when he put me in this body, nor you in your white body, whatever body that you're in. We have a responsibility to look at the rest of that man's speech, and you'll understand why we're in the mess we're in. One last point on this. When you read the speech, I dissected it pretty good. And the first half of the speech is 1,043 words, and mostly berating America for not paying up on the promissory note, which is the reason why black folks are suffering, right? Black citizens are suffering. The second half only has 616 words. We will not experience free at last, until we deal with the promissory note first. Ken, what do you think of that, brother? I mean, you're talking about the voting thing. So how can we vote, right or wrong, if we don't know who we are in the law?
Well, see, that's just it. And I said it when I was I want
to go to Keith. I want to go to Keith.
Oh, you want to go to Keith?
Sorry,
Okay,
Ken.
okay.
My bad, Keith.
Yeah. We vote. You know, see, voting again, as like Miss Ashley said, it's a privilege that we need to remember. And voting is so important. I don't stress a whole lot of. Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna. I don't want to go out on a limb here and say something that
going out there and I'll get the saw and cut the limb off.
Yeah, some people really don't deserve to vote, to tell you the truth. Some people don't need to vote.
Come on, brother. I agree.
Keith, undermining the Constitution.
Keith, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm with you. This may be gonna make some people angry. A lot of people don't really deserve to vote. And the founding fathers said originally, you cannot participate in the voting process unless you own property or have some kind of investment in society. Am I correct, Keith, about that?
Yeah, that's the way it was back then. That's the way it certainly was. You had some type of investment in the interest of others. I mean, if you have property, you own property, you sell it, you rent it out for others to use. I mean, you were responsible. A responsible citizen, because you had responsibility.
Well, Keith, Keith, there's a lot of talk in America today. Even some Republicans even use this term stupidly, and it's coming from the Democrats. You always hear them say, "Our democracy, we're losing our democracy, our democracy." Keith, you are a constitutional expert. Is the word democracy in the Constitution?
I haven't seen too much of it. I bet
How
you
about the Declaration of Independence?
I haven't seen it there either.
So why we keep allowing people to say, well, what is there, Keith? What are we? What does the Constitution say?
Well, people don't acknowledge the Declaration and Constitution at all. So that's probably why they easily say democracy.
Well, what does the Constitution say we are?
We're a republic. They don't even say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore.
Is that Article 4,
and
Section
to the
4?
Republic. Yeah, to the Republic for which it stands.
but they keep saying our democracy. And even Republicans say our democracy. Miss Ashley, what's your take on that?
We are a representative republic. That means we vote people into office supposedly that represent us. And we have a right to remove them when they don't represent us. So what you were saying earlier is so true as far as if you just want to go back to Johnson, him and Biden in the same camp, two of the biggest racists that ever lived, that both of them hated black people. Okay. Now, Johnson knew that he eventually signed off, on the Voting Rights Act law in like 1964 or whatever. But he knew along with that too, he said, listen, these ninjas are going to get the right to vote. So what's going to happen? We got to do something to break that up, to give them a little something that they will rely on the government. And that's what happened. That's where welfare, food stamps, all these different things came in that we never had before, okay? Because they want to make sure you got the vote, but they want to make sure you knew that, all your other things were coming, from the government. But along, ladies, if you take these assistance from the government, guess what we're going to do? The man has to leave the household. Now, we sold our soul for 30 pieces of silver. The man walked out the house. Now we have all these women trying to raise all these kids, and we completely separate our families. Like I said before, when I was growing up, 90% of families were moms and dads, up to 25% now. And if you break up the family, so goes society. When I was growing up, we were teachers, we were lawyers, we were landowners, we were farmers, we everything you think of. How we had all that going when we had all this real racism going on in our society? Our families were strong, and we had an unwavering faith and commitment to God. No matter what they did to us, we would not be moved. But when it came in, the government came in and replaced God. That's what happened to our society during that period of time. It was done to us on purpose, and it has worked to perfection. After that came in, we have now the drugs came in our communities. We had now the biggest thing have been abortion. Also, that a lot of people bought into came to our communities. We're only 38 million right now. After abortion, we've exterminated maybe 22 million babies right now, black babies the last 50 years. If all those babies would have been born, a lot of them would have been, and then we would have had the violence out of our communities. Instead of 38 million, we could have easily been 80 to 100 million right now. We told God, we don't want you, we don't need you, we don't need family. So God said, okay, let me show you how you look without me. And this is what you see right now, how we look like without God in our lives. That's why we're starting from this point right now. I can't do anything about all the stuff we've lost. I only can start we are now, and hopefully trying to build that bond again, that what we're dealing with, we can start rebuilding families. I believe in church parochial schools that these kids get some sense of God in their lives, because a lot of them don't have any at all. So if you work those things together, bring that family back and bring God back into our lives, that's the only thing that's going to save us out of the mess we're in right now.
Thank you, Miss Ashley. Unicorn. This whole business of our democracy instead of our republic. The U.S. Constitution says in Article 4, Section 4, that we have been given a Republican form of government. Brother, what can we do to begin to change the mentality, particularly of young people who just hear that flippantly and don't know the history? For example, don't know the history that in 1870, the Congress and the president had to make laws to stop Democrats from disenfranchising black folks from voting. Talk to us, Unicorn.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of scriptural stuff and a lot of spiritual stuff, and that's very good. And like I say, I find myself honored to be in the presence of the people so assembled here tonight. We have to, because the left is operating from a gentleman named Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky said, if you tell the lie enough, sooner or later, the people are going to believe it. Well, if they keep calling this a democracy, they're ruining our democracy. Those undereducated people that Miss Ashley just spoke upon, who can barely read at a third grade reading level, they're going to go, oh, stop messing with our democracy. We, meaning those of us who have been selected for this time, because I was convicted in my spirit last night. And I want to share this with everybody watching. We could have been born at any time during the Alpha and Omega of God's will. We could have been born at any time during that. But we who are here now today, with all this high technology, with all the apex of the problems that are going on. I was about to get all down about what's happening, right? And now I'm so encouraged inside myself because I'm with you all, and you all are with me, and we're with God, and we're here at this time.
Preach. Yes, sir. Yes,
we
sir.
were selected
Yes,
for
sir.
this time, for such a time as this. And
Yeah,
how are we going to stop what's going on? We're going to have to stay scripturally correct. Let's not be Saul. And when I say let's not be Saul, what I mean by that is we got the GOP, which I like to call the GOOP, which is the really old people. They're not letting go of power. No different than nasty Pelosi.
Yeah.
We have to become humble in our spirits. We have to understand that we do have to reach down to our young people and start educating them ourselves. This program, CaliforniaChoice.org, is such a thing, such a vehicle, because the public school system is a cesspool. I have grandchildren that I'm going to be talking to my children about, and I'm going to be urging them, pull my grandchildren out of this school system that I might not die with my bloodline being contaminated by the wicked. This is where we got to be, Ted. And I'm glad you asked me that question, because I've been praying and saying, Lord God, fill my mouth with what I have to say tonight. We got to get on fire about this. We got to become piping hot. You know what I'm saying? That's what we got to get. And that's why I joined in with Miss Ashley and the founder of the CaliforniaChoice.org. I got my own gear today. He brought me my own gear. I got a t-shirt. It's not a sweater like yours, Miss Ashley. It's just a regular t-shirt. But I do want to ask you, Miss Ashley, because it was put on my spirit. Here in Redlands, California, I ran across a woman when I tried to get her to sign the ballot. She's wearing $1,000 pair of boots. I know good clothes when I see them. You know what I'm saying? She's wearing $1,000 pair of boots and a Fendi purse and saying, the kids are just fine where they are. I'm an educator. Stop messing with the program. They're just fine where they are. I'm like, Lord Jesus, that's not going to work, right? So, Miss Ashley, I want to go to Fontana. I want to go to San Bernardino. I want to come to Los Angeles, Ted, and we need to do rallies around this ballot initiative. What do you think, Ms. Ashley? You see what I'm saying? We got to get hot, hot, hot. So, you know, when I met the founder of the program today, he looked at me and he said, whoa, you on fire. I'm like, you know what? I used to be a cop, private investigator, all this stuff. And I was I'm going to say it. I don't care if the IRS is listening. I used to make a lot of money. I was a millionaire. But the Lord took all that away from me and said, Kenny, now I need you to be about this. Boy, did I resist. I resisted. I'm like, come on now. Where's my V12 Jaguar that I bought from Frank Sinatra's estate? Okay, that's on the DMV records. You can see that.
Wow.
Took all that away from me. And when I sit here and think that those people so assembled on this TV show tonight, this ain't no accident.
Right.
We are here because the Lord God deemed that we be here.
Right.
And so since we find ourselves here, let's do like Dr. King said, organize, baby, organize. Strategize, baby, strategize. So, Ted, that's my answer. We have got to get as aggressive and hardcore about saving these children as them fools are about killing them.
Absolutely. You know, folks, Ken, everybody's been talking about God. And if you notice, all the politicians at the end, they're swearing and they say, so help me God, so help me God. If you look at my background there, my green screen there, that is, ladies and gentlemen, young people, that room there is the floor of the House of Representatives, Congress, right? And that's where the speaker sits right there in that chair. And over their head is "In God We Trust," in the very house of the people. In God we trust. This is what it's starting to boil down to, y'all. It's going to be either God or not. And before we take the next step on that, I want to, because something just came back to my mind here. Do you talk, Ken or Unicorn, about the GOOP? And
GOOP, yeah, the old.
We berate the socialist driven Democrats, and we also talk about the feckless black liberals who are like their lap dogs, attack dogs. But you know something we cannot leave out of this, y'all, is Republican Party. Amen. In my opinion, Republican Party is more accountable to what has happened to us, than the Democrats, because Republicans dared to politicize our identity, all Americans who are Republicans, we are the guardians of the republic. We have given you a republic, the founding fathers said, if you can keep it. And that was based on, of course, the fact that the greatest imperfection of the union that we, the people, was charged to more perfect was the issue of chattel slavery and its destructive generations post it. And the Republicans decided in 1854, y'all, go look it up, in 1856, that they was going to organize themselves. It was Democrats, it was Whigs, it was Free Soilers, it was Know Nothings. They came together in a multi-party coalition and formed the Republican Party specifically to end chattel slavery and to ensure that those freed slaves experience a citizenship as is enjoyed by white citizens. Well, ladies and gentlemen, young people, in 1877, the Republicans got tired of us and they abandoned us. And you go look it up. It's called the 1877 compromise between the Democrat and Republican Party over the fate of the freed slaves, and you will see that they gave us back to the Democrats in that compromise, and that was the birth of Jim Crow. And the Republicans Party watched black folks, 23,000 plus of us, get lynched by the Democrats. We were Jim Crowed by the Democrats, and not once did the Republican Party stand up to their responsibility until 1952, when Dwight David Eisenhower came out and said the Brown, and he pushed Brown versus the Board of Education, demanding that young people, young black students, have the same opportunity to literacy as white children, and he enforced it by sending the military in 1857, September 1857, to ensure that black children can read, because they knew that when we learn to read, even a fourth grade level, what's in this Constitution, we will come out of our madness. But the Republicans mysteriously continue to, instead of standing up and rebuking Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and all the rest of them, they sit back and they let it continue. And you got to ask the question, why? Well, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I have talked to high-level politicians in Congress about this, and when I bring up our people's struggle, as opposed to them working more to help non-black people, you know what they say to me? Basically, black folks are a lost cause.
Yeah, I gotta say this, and I'm so glad you said that, sir. That has been the heartbreak of my mind. You know, one of the situations I've been going through for the last 3 weeks.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to say no names.
You don't have to.
I'm not going to say no names. But that person, a very powerful person on the planet, contacted me and said, Kenny, stop trying to help them. They are not worth it. You're not going to be able to stop us, but we can make you very wealthy if you just stop trying to help them. And that broke my heart, because that's our people. That's the African-American diaspora. But there are those on this planet right now, they're not racist. And this is what's so maddening about it. And intellect causes this type of concept. What they're about to do to us is not really predicated on racism. It's predicated on the fact that the African-American is doing a number on himself. We can't even agree on what time it is. We can't even pour a cup of coffee in front of each other and be at peace with one another. There are people on this planet who see that, and they have an idea for the 22nd century that doesn't include us.
And you know, the sad thing about this, and I'm gonna name a name on this one, and I hope he gets in touch with somebody telling him that hey, he said it. Thomas Sowell, the great guru of conservatism. White folks listened to him as though he was the son of God. Well, Mr. Sowell, how come you're not teaching our people about our birthright in the Constitution, the 14th Amendment? Mr. Sowell, how come you are not organizing conservative Republicans, whatever y'all, black folks, whatever y'all are, to stand up against this stuff? Why aren't y'all calling news conferences? Why aren't y'all marching and demonstrating?
Because they're getting theirs, Ted, because they're getting theirs. I'm starting to see that. See, that's why the Lord took all that money and wealth and prestige. See, come on. I used to roll up to Las Vegas, and the guys knew me by name. They would just take my stuff out of the car. I could literally just go in the casino and start gambling. When I was done, I could go up to my room. All my stuff was laid out. That was my old form of life. But the Lord God took all that away from me, all of it, for one express reason. So that when we go down this road that we're all going down right now, the money would not affect me anymore. But Mr. Soul, all these talking heads that we see on all these other shows, they getting something. See, they getting something. Me, I'm on this CaliforniaSchoolChoice.org. I'm not getting a dime. I'm doing it because I believe in it. Period.
What we're saying ultimately, skin color doesn't have much to do with this at all, really.
Nope.
Because if it was skin color, we wouldn't be going through what we're going through. In fact, if it was skin color was the issue, black folks in Africa 400 years ago when they put black folks on a white man's ship. Okay,
you are so smart. You are so right. Oh my God!
Black people. Hey, y'all, we're gonna have to have a conversation one day about what.
I want to say something about what Miss Ashley brought up real quick. Real quick. This is something to think about. This is something to think about. They want us to go back to 1619. You know, all this. Oh, we were for 400 years. This was happening to us 200 years ago. Da 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 da. Miss Ashley said something that's a seed of thought for you young people who are watching this show. I want you to think about this. We've been here for over 500 years, if you want to get technical about it. And we like sex like the next man. We like to procreate. We do a lot of it. Okay, our songs even speak on it. So how is it that after 450 years of being in this country, one of the most fertile, rich, vibrant countries on the planet, there's plenty of food, or at least there was till Joe Biden came, but there was plenty of food and plenty. Why is it that we're still only 13% of this country? That defies numerics. That's because the body count, the vibrancy of reproduction is truly being interfered with on purpose.
Yeah, and that's because we don't know who we are, and therefore, if you don't know who you are, your life doesn't matter, and people use your life.
The last 13%, after 400 years, we're still only 13%, and nobody's making the connection.
But we are starting to do that now, y'all, right here on Urban Smart Network with Your Power Weapon. I mean, we're going to step out and deal with this thing. If nobody else does, God has said, don't wait for somebody else to do it. The vacuum's there, step in. Keith, you got last couple seconds here, and Miss Ashley, last couple seconds, and Ken, and then we got to close it out, y'all. We got to go. Keith.
Well, remember something that Abraham Lincoln once said. He said, let us readopt the practices and policies that harmonize with the Declaration of Independence, and we will save this nation. I think it's very important that we teach these documents alongside the Word, because the Bible, the Declaration, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, all of these things contain the laws of nature. All of these things contain what our nation is all about. That's all it is. It's so simple.
You sure about that, Keith?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Miss Ashley.
So we have been planted here, like Mr. Ken was saying, we've been planted here in this season for this reason, what we're all doing right now. Our job is to plant the seed, which we're doing. Apollos will water, and God will give the increase when it's time. We never know from the seed we're planted whether it's going to take root and flourish, and I don't really worry about that. We're doing what we're supposed to do, what God wants to do in this place and time, and the rest will take care of itself. So let's continue to plant those seeds.
Absolutely. Amen. Real quick, Unicorn, a quick stab.
All I want to say is this. I'm gonna make it quicker than that. I am honored to be with this esteemed group of people. 5 years ago, when the Lord told me that my life was going to take a change, I had no idea it would look like this. Thank you all for having me be a part of this program. I'm honored.
And we got to give a shout out to Smoke back in the background there, because that's one brilliant young man to put this platform together for us to use. So we appreciate him and Mike and everybody over there at Urban Smart Network. And don't forget now, this is Ted, Your Power Weapon. We'll see you next week, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Coast time, 10 o'clock p.m. East Coast time. Your Power Weapon on UrbanSmartNetwork.com.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night, y'all.
Woohoo. Are we off?
No. Smoke.
I'm
Smoke.